Hello everybody, it's lovely to be with you again. My name's Margaret and I'm part of the Children and Families team at St John's Church here in Sandyway. Excuse me a minute while I put these down. Right, so that one's got Santa's on, so that should be okay for children. This one's got Christmas puddings on, so that will be okay for the grown-ups. And this one's got snowflakes on. I wonder if we'll get any snow this year in winter. I'm sure that you have been very busy at school since the last time we had an assembly together. You'd have been learning lots of different things and I'm sure having lots of adventures. I was trying to get prepared by buying some Christmas wrapping paper. I hope there'll be enough. If not, I might have to buy more. I've also been trying to think about some of my friends who don't live in the village, who live a bit further away. So I've also been buying some Christmas cards so I can put them in the post and send them to them. It's all part of being prepared for Christmas. But for Christians, this is a very special time called Advent. Advent is a funny word. It comes from Latin, which is very old language, and it means coming. But who's coming? And what are Christians getting prepared for? You might have already heard that word Advent. You might have one of these, an Advent calendar. This is a chocolate one, which we'll be able to share with my family. Or you may have one which just has pictures on. Or you may have one like this, with things to make each day. You may even have an Advent candle, which a grown-up will be able to light each day from the 1st of December to the 24th, which is Christmas Eve. So we can think each day about Christmas coming and being prepared. But who are we getting prepared for? Why do we need to do all these things? Well, Christians look at a time of Advent as getting ready to celebrate the birth of Jesus. Now, Jesus' birth took place a very long time ago, over 2,000 years. You might think, well, why do Christians still do this? Well, the time of Advent is really to think about the coming of Jesus at Christmas. That it's a time of getting ready, of perhaps remembering to say prayers more, to be a bit kinder, to do things for somebody else, or at least think of others, even if we're very busy with all the other things that we're preparing. Why an Advent candle? Well, one of the names for Jesus is the light of the world. And so that reminds us about the light coming into the world on Christmas Day. And so Christians celebrate Christmas every year. Now, the first Christmas was a time of preparation too, but not in the way that these things are preparing us for. You see, over 2,000 years ago, in the place where Jesus was born, the Romans were in charge. In fact, at that time, the Romans were in charge in a lot of places. Eventually, they were here in England, and if you've been to Chester, you might have seen the Roman amphitheatre where they used to have games. But for Jesus and his family, they lived in the north of a country which we now call Israel. Mary was expecting her first baby. She'd be getting ready too. That must have been very hard, thinking, right, what will I need? I'll probably need some clean clothes for the baby. I'll probably need a nice soft cot of some kind to put the baby in. I'll need to make sure I've got a little bit of help when the baby arrives. I better make sure I've got some extra food in as well. Joseph, her husband, was a carpenter, so he would have been very busy building things. He may have even tried to build a cot for the new baby arriving. Then something happened that pushed all their preparations out. You see, the Romans liked to know what was going on in all the different parts of their empire. And the story of what happened is in the Christian Bible, the Christian Holy Book, in the New Testament, the part that tells us about Jesus and about his life and what happened after he died and what his friends went on to do. And the story about Jesus began with his mother Mary being told by an angel that she was going to have a very special child. That was a big surprise in itself, so even more reason to prepare well for this arrival. But this is what the Romans said. In the faraway city of Rome, the Emperor Augustus needed money. "Write down the names of all the people in every country that I rule," he said. "I want to make sure they pay my tax." The emperor's order went out, away across the sea, and to the far-off land where Mary and Joseph lived. Now, when they got this news, they didn't get a message on the internet, they didn't get an email, they didn't get a WhatsApp, they didn't get a text, there wasn't anything on the television, because none of those things existed. So the Romans sent people round to each town and city, and they told everyone, they stood in the marketplace and called out, "Right, everyone has to go and be counted, and everyone has to pay their taxes to Rome." Now, it wasn't just that they had to be counted. They couldn't stay in the place where they lived and just make sure that the Romans knew who they were. Oh no. They had to go back to the town where their father was born. Now, for Joseph, that was a long way away. He came from a family who lived in Bethlehem, which was in the south of the country. So they had to go all the way from the north down to the south. It was probably about 60 miles. Now, nowadays, that wouldn't be too long a journey, maybe about an hour, depending on the traffic. But there weren't any cars. And it might even be the same if you could go on a train. But there weren't any trains either. So Mary and Joseph had got a bit of a problem. Mary knew her baby was going to be born in a few weeks. The last thing she wanted to do was to go on a long journey. And the only transport they had was a donkey. So they had to set off. "We must go to Bethlehem," Joseph said, "to put our names on the emperor's list." It was a long way, and Joseph was worried about Mary. Her baby was due to be born soon, but they had to go. They set off on a long journey, taking their time until they got to Bethlehem. When they got there, everything was full. All the hotels were booked up. There was no space at all. You can imagine how they must have felt. There they were, excited and preparing for their new baby to be born. And all of a sudden, everything had changed. Instead of making preparations to have their baby, they had to prepare to go on a long journey. Mary and Joseph travelled a very, very long way in order to get to Bethlehem. And eventually, when they got there, there was no rooms to be had. Luckily, a kind innkeeper let them stay in his stable. And that's where Jesus was born. Now, as it gets closer to Christmas, I'm sure that you'll learn more about the Christian story of what happened next. Now we're in Advent. We're thinking about that. There are lots of people at the moment who maybe can't travel to their families, but they might be able to soon. There might be lots of people who don't know whether or not to prepare for Christmas. But what we can do in Advent all together, Christians, people who are of different faiths, can think about each other. We can try to be kinder. We can be prepared, ready to celebrate Christmas or just to enjoy each other's company. I'm going to say a prayer now. If you'd like to make it your prayer, you can say Amen at the end. Heavenly Father, thank you for the opportunities we have to prepare in Advent to celebrate Jesus' birthday once more. Help us during this special time to be kind to each other, to share when we can, and to look forward to a happy celebration. Amen. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoy your Advent, whether it's having an Advent calendar or just doing other things.